I'd like to call the meeting to order on Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Attorney Ken Shepro is sitting in for our regular attorney. And Christy, if you would call the roll, please.
Trustee Gutierrez? Here. Trustee Porter?
Present.
Trustee Kemper?
Here.
Trustee Bancole?
Here.
Trustee Prigi?
Here.
And Trustee Husani?
Here.
They're all present.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Christy, call the roll.
Trustee Porter?
Yes.
Trustee Kemper?
Yes.
Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
Trustee Prigi?
Yes.
Trustee Husani?
Yes.
And Trustee Gutierrez? Yes. Thank you.
Very good. We have a presentation. Lauren Saturnus? Very good. We missed you last time, and I'm glad that you're here tonight. It's an important endeavor, so you have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you for your time. My name is Lauren Saturnus. I'm here as a resident of Schaumburg Township. I will be advocating in favor of the mental health referendum that it will be on the ballot this fall, very shortly now. I will not be able to answer questions on behalf of any government that I may represent. On the same token, but because you are here as elected officials, I just want to remind you that you're not able to advocate either for or against a political referendum in your current role. But certainly we can, address pros and cons and have some conversation around that. So, I'll get the presentation going. A 708 board, as it's sometimes called, or Community Mental Health Board, covers three areas, which I'm going to talk about today. The first being mental health, of course, and then substance use disorders, as well as developmental and intellectual disabilities such as autism. So just some statistics around the need. I'm sure we all have personal stories and people that we know, to kind of connect some of this with, but I want to talk about some of the broader numbers. So our ERs have seen an uptick, certainly since the pandemic, in mental health calls. Often police and fire departments are involved in these calls. When there is a mental health crisis, on average it takes 30 minutes longer to address those. And if we can put into place some preventative services, we can help to avoid some of these. We've talked to our police departments in Schaumburg, the village of Schaumburg, for example. They have social workers, but a lot of times people will, go to the ER for mental health reasons when they've, been dealing with police, come out, not be able to access the mental health services they need. Police are getting called back, within a couple of weeks, and it just continues because we don't have these preventative services. So I really feel, while, I'll talk about what the tax is later, this is a cost-saving measure in the long run. So just some national statistics about when people get treatment. Often it's an average of 11 years from the onset of symptoms to when people actually seek mental health treatment. And a lot of things go into that, whether it's stigma, access, linguistic factors. And in a given year, only 45% of individuals with a mental illness are receiving treatment. When we talk about adults with serious mental illness, so this is things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, only 2/3 are getting mental health treatment. So there are a lot of gaps, there's a lot of work to do, and I'll talk about how we can address this later in the presentation. So in addition to mental health, this referendum would deal with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Our public school system, which I'm a school psychologist by day, by the way, we support our kids pretty well when they're in the special education system. When they turn 22 in the state of Illinois, they're pretty much on their own. A lot of times they'll go on what's called a PUNS list, where once your name gets called off the PUNS list, you get access to services like housing, daycare, vocational help. But while you're waiting on that PUNS list, often for years, the burden is really on the family, to try to support their young adult child with a significant disability, and that's hard for a lot of families. All right, so next is substance use disorders. This, I think, has a lot of stigma. All of these have stigma, but this one in particular. But substance use disorder it's a brain disease, and it is often, a cycle that just gets worse and worse. And, I'm sure you've all heard about the uptick in opioid overdose deaths, especially during 2020. But it has continued to increase, and over the last couple of years, it's increased 36%, specifically opioid overdose deaths. In Cook County, over 80% of those involve fentanyl. And also, this deals with alcohol. And a statistic that I found kind of alarming, perhaps not to the police in the room, but alcohol accounts for about a third of all traffic-related deaths in the United States. So again, most of us know someone who's dealing with one of these three things. So hopefully you can kind of connect some of these things with people that you know or families that you know as I talk about now what we can do to fix it. So a community mental health board is specifically local. So it's made up of a volunteer board of 7 to 9 residents, kind of like yourself. And they're accountable to the citizens. There are many of these in Illinois, including right here in Hanover Township and Bloomingdale Township, but we don't have one in Schaumburg Township, so we're just kind of trying to catch up at this point locally. The Community Mental Health Board would be governed by the Illinois Community Mental Health Act, so there are specific guidelines around how the funding can be spent and how they operate and what they're required to do. The boards do not themselves provide services, but they are helping to strategize the local agencies and fund services. Okay, so the first thing that a board would do is evaluate the community needs. And this would be a pretty lengthy process. So if this passes on November 8th, they would take the next year to conduct a community needs assessment, which would include focus groups with different departments, different agencies, residents, and then based on that, they would strategize and figure out what they're going to recommend for a levy. And ultimately, they would decide how the money is spent and allocate the funding. The ultimate goal would, of course, be to reduce those gaps that I talked about. And in Schaumburg Township, we have long wait lists, especially for youth seeking mental health services. The other point that I'll make is that the money that is raised can only be used for Schaumburg Township residents. So it doesn't go to the county, it doesn't go to Springfield, it all stays right here. So these are some examples of how 708 boards can work. Of course, the Schaumburg Mental Health Board would focus specifically on local needs, so it would be a very tailored plan, but these are some examples. One thing I want to point out is that mental health boards can be not only targeted to the local need broadly, but a timely need. So when there was a pandemic, a lot of our therapists had to go remote, and they didn't have the training, they didn't have the technology, so a community mental health board could really help in that time of need promptly. So some technical information about the referendum. The tax levy is capped at 0.15%, but based on the local examples such as Hanover Township and Bloomingdale Township, we would look at raising about $1.5 million, which we feel would really close a lot of these gaps, which averages out to about $25 per year per household. And this is, again, not unique. It's on the ballot for Schaumburg Township as well as Wheeling Township, Lisle Township, Addison Township, Will County, so lots of areas are looking at this year. As I mentioned, they've already been established locally, and these are independent, so the way that these work is the mental health board will devise a recommendation for a levy, but then the township board actually decides what that levy is, so there is some checks and balances there, and then the decisions on how the funding is used goes back to the mental health board. I think that might be it. Okay, so I'm happy to take questions.
Well, we probably should refrain to get, the pros and the cons coming out. We don't want to do that in this environment. Certainly appreciate you coming and sharing the information. And I know the board probably has a bunch of questions, but I think we don't want to get into an area where we're crossing the line supporting,
completely-
not supporting. I could
completely
talk an
appreciate
hour
that.
on that. So I want to thank you for coming tonight and sharing the information.
Thank
I am
you.
familiar with the boards and the other townships, so.
Great. And on the next slide, there's a website that you can access. My personal email is on there. If you'd like to have a conversation, we can do that on the government side as well. I'm happy to answer questions about kind of where we stand, but, all right.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate you
you.
coming tonight. All right. Anyone for town hall? Oh,
Don Smith. Don, you can come up.
is there a name? Oh, Don. I've known his family for a long time, so he's smiling. Nice to have you with us, Don.
Thank you for hearing me. I just have a simple question. I was looking to see who I would speak to about lanes, turning lanes being painted on the ground, because the study's been done. The engineers said it's feasible to get turning lanes at Stearns Road going out onto, or turning lanes on Redford going out onto Stearns Road. Very simple. Who do I speak to?
Well, we have an engineer that is taking care of that. Is that right? He's in the back row. And maybe you can make an appointment, or you can step out in the hall and take a minute and exchange information. And I know that's a major project that's going to be coming to the board. Projects like that really help us keep our homeowner taxes down, and it's important that we grow in a community like ours, and that new housing is an important opportunity in a home that's pretty much landlocked, except for all that property next to your house.
Yeah.
No, I know, Don.
Well, my concern is really just expediting getting the turning lanes in to alleviate that nightmare that is Stearns Road in Redford.
There's a board member that probably would agree with you.
Yeah,
I won't point it out.
I live right there.
So, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for hearing me.
All right. President's report. I've been too busy to even put 3 words together on a piece of paper. The Congressman continues to support the initiative of the 8 communities in DuPage County on the railroad. He was on the paper yesterday, on the news and whatnot, along with Senator Durbin, to try to make sense of, get some additional information. I enjoyed my trip to DC and speaking at the Surface Transportation Board, identifying the issues of our communities. Hopefully, there'll be some mitigation come out of this whole thing. Railroads go back, really took control during the Civil War to move product and equipment, and they hung on to that forever. But in an urban area, urban area, we have to work smarter, and combining, I'll probably sound like a broken record, but combining commuter with freight, it's a problem. And we have to have, since Metro owns this railroad, we should have control of that timing of all what's coming and going. Town hall session, okay, we just did that. My report. Move to approve by unanimous vote items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
We have motion and a second. Christie, call the roll.
Trustee Kemper?
Yes.
Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
Trustee Prigi?
Yes.
Trustee Husani?
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Trustee Porter?
Yes.
Thank you. 7A8, move to approve warrant 10/20/2022, the amount of $1,927,046.20.
So moved.
Second?
We have motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Christie, call the roll.
Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
Trustee Prigi?
Yes.
Trustee Husani?
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes.
Trustee Porter?
Yes.
And Trustee Kemper?
Yes.
Thank you. 7A9, move to approve warrant paid in advance, 9/28/2022, through 10/13/2022 in the amount of $668,308.99.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Christie, call the roll.
Trustee Brigi?
Yes.
Trustee Trustee Husani?
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes.
Trustee Porter?
Yes.
Trustee Kemper?
Yes.
And Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
Thank you. Village Manager's Report. Juliana, I thought I'd take a breath.
The first item is the monthly treasurer's report for September 2022. If you look at that report, you'll start seeing kind of where we're headed for the year. But again, this won't give you a full picture until the end of the year. But if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And then, Mayor, either now or after everybody else is on the agenda, we can have, we can continue the water discussion. We have some answers to questions.
Okay.
Do you want to do that right now?
Why don't
or-
we do that now?
Okay. So, do you have handouts? I do. Okay.
Which one are we doing first?
We're going to, we have some answers to Trustee
Answers?
Hussein's questions that came out yesterday.
TJ, Trustee Porter wanted to know what all that broken pipe was laying up here.
Sorry, sir?
Trustee Porter wanted to know about that broken pipe up here.
Okay. This is the condition of a lot of the water piping in town. And one of the things we're talking about is a multi-year plan for replacing pipe.
Thank you, sir.
So, yesterday, Trustee Husseini had asked, regarding the fixed scale meter structure that's being recommended, how many accounts fell, or customers' accounts fell into each size, pipe. So, as you recall, we are recommending that we change the structure to charge a rate based on what size pipe and meter you have versus everybody receiving the same formula. So as you see on this one with the pie chart, most of our accounts fall into the 3/4 inch meter, which is our homeowners, and a residential home, typical residential home. It's also shown on here 1,813 for the discounted, those that we have on the discounted meter rate. But then it also shows those who fall into the other sizes, and we had talked about the 4-inch meter yesterday, that we only have 3 accounts there, and then you'll see how much revenue based on the new formula would be generated from those other pipes or meter sizes. And then on the other side of the sheet is, shows the fixed rate, scaled meter rate structure and how much each of the years between 2020 and 2030 that rate would be reflected on the rates and the increases of 4.5%. But this should be also, we should also remember that the recommendation is that we look at it and have it looked at every year, a couple of years, so there would be adjustments going forward. But essentially, this is the formula and the structure to be able to pay for the need in the community, hence the pipe that you have for show and tell in front of you. And just to remember that just because when we get to 2030, it's not the end of the road. It's still a lot of pipe out there. This is just the window that we're looking at right now. So, did that answer your questions?
Yes.
Trustee? And do you have any follow-up on that?
No, I think that's what I want to see, the impact of it, and it's not a significant impact as to 1.5 or 2 inches or even 1 inch meters. Is mostly residential. That's what I was suspecting, that what numbers would look like, and that's how it is. And if we go to fixed, and if we use this formula, how much debt we will have by end of 2030?
So we are right now looking at an IEPA loan. It would go into effect in 2024.
Correct.
And I believe we're talking about borrowing how much?
Let's call it
$5
$5 million per year for 5 years.
Yeah, so 5 million each year for 5 years. But then the debt service would build, if you remember that
That's
that
right.
chart from yesterday.
So we were ending at a yellow benchmark. I didn't know what that signifies as to what's outstanding at that point. If I'm reading this correctly, the chart, the graph of cash flow.
Which one are you looking at?
That's, there is no number, so Juliana.
Right, are you, you're in the fixed scale meter rate status?
Is it scenario 2?
It is scenario 2, minimum rate increase, fixed scaled meter with volumetric rate.
Okay, go ahead. So the yellow is total debt.
And what is that amount? It's above 20 million.
I don't, let's see here, hold on. I don't think that that's was specifically. Annual bill, annual increase, infrastructure. Do you have that or Linda have that?
It was part of the earlier,
I believe.
earlier, public,
I have the presentation for that.
that's the one presentation that we did for us. I'm looking at it.
She's looking it up. It wasn't it. It was, I think he spoke to it, but
Yeah, I
here
think-
it's just shown as part on, in the graph perspective. I mean, if
That's
you
right.
look, it's about,
22.4.
it's not quite 25,000. Because if you look at this, it's hard, so as we're incurring it, we're also paying it off.
Right.
So
Right.
But there's no.
that's why even though when you get to the end, the yellow isn't the full,
So if
Five,
we go
10,
by scenario 1,
25
we'll have a bit of more operating cash on hand. That's how I take it. If I'm different, let me know. If scenario 1 is more that we'll have paid towards that than, and have working cash flow, operating revenue, I'm sorry, then the scenario 2, we're gonna have just outstanding debt and barely having operating revenue.
right, remember
$3
that
million.
we, the goal of this was to maintain $3 million
Yeah.
in reserves. So this one does that by 2030, you will
scenario
still have that. Where the other scenario, it crossed that line and you were not able to maintain that 3 million.
Right, that crosses that line in 2025. And a steady decline. So we do this one.
It's hard without the page numbers on here, sorry.
Yes,
I just
we're all
wanna-
kind of different.
No, it's scenario 1.
So if you look at this scenario 2, by 2030, you're still not crossing that blue line.
And that's an area 2, minimum rate increase, flat scale, okay.
So that's the scenario 2, minimum rate increases,
Okay.
fixed scale, does not cross the blue line in this, but if you look back on the baseline, it crossed, as trustee Kemper said, in 2025. You basically run out of money in 2025 in that scenario.
Okay. On the chart.
So other questions? I know, I thought others had questions.
So I just want to be clear, regardless of whether it's an industrial complex, it's a home, et cetera, this, the fixed scale meter structure is 4.5% across.
The fixed scale,
For
it's
the-
4.5% for the water.
But-
The differential comes in the
Service
infrastructure,
charge.
in the infrastructure
Okay.
charge, yes.
And then out of curiosity, this says that there are some that's discounted for the 3/4 inch meter and less. We've got less than 3/4?
5/8.
5/8?
Yeah.
I guess we have a
5/8 is
5/8
the smallest we got.
Who uses that?
So, like, so Lisa, in your area, I believe you have a 5/8 meter.
Is that my problem with the water pressure in my home? That I have 5/8. So, okay, but the difference is now in the service charge. The rate is
Correct.
the same across the board, whether you're a big giant company or you're home,
Correct, on the water.
on the water.
But, because then you're buying per gallon.
Right.
So they're using a lot more water, bill's gonna be a lot higher. But
Okay.
as far as the infrastructure, which is used primarily for capital, this is, that's where you'll see the differential. And I think that's where the board struggled last year, when we recommended a $12
Yes.
infrastructure increase, breaking it down for some.
TJ,
This
What-
provides more relief, additional relief.
when we did the water meter replacement, did they do all 3/4 inch meters in residential, or did they use 5/8?
No, we used all 3/4 inch
Okay,
meters.
so if you had a 5/8, you got upgraded to 3/4.
We're on.
Yeah.
So you should have better pressure. Other questions?
Okay.
Yes, so I have several questions and also statements, so please bear with me.
Have we moved from this?
Well, I don't know that we moved. We answered trustee Husseini's questions. I don't know if anybody else has questions from yesterday.
This is still on water. We're still on water, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay. So I thought the presentation that we got yesterday from Baxter and Woodman was excellent. I think they did a really good job of being very thorough. The gentleman that presented to us seemed very knowledgeable, and so I do just want to applaud our village staff for choosing to work with them, because I really thought that was a great presentation. First, just wanted to start with that. I did just want to mention a couple of things. So in August, during a board meeting when we were initially looking at working with Baxter and Woodman, I requested that one of the components when looking at the water and sewer study was that we looked at the median income, the median household income of our residents within the village of Hanover Park, because I think that any time that we are going to raise the prices of a commodity, we should try to make sure that our residents can actually afford said commodity. And so yesterday, when I asked the gentleman that presented if he had looked at the median household income for the village of Hanover Park, he gave me a national average. So I do just want to clarify, was that data looked at and was that taken into consideration when putting this study together? Because I didn't get that answer yesterday.
So what I think I heard him say yesterday was that there isn't a set number that is an industry standard to look at, so that they looked at similarly to what you did last year, which was LIHEAP and those programs that have a guide
for the other utilities, so for gas and electric. And so those are the ones that we are using for this discounted rate, customers with a discounted meter rate. And so they maintained that discount in there. So it's about 1/3 of the cost of the infrastructure maintenance fee for everyone else for currently. For residents, so they maintain that. So when there's a 4.5% increase, it's on top of that. So they are still maintaining that 1/3 of the cost of the average customer or the regular customer. Now, could that skew over the years? I think that's why he's recommending that we continue to look at it on a regular basis so that you can reset and see if there's a need. But that is what I heard and that they did regarding that. Does that answer your question?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. So the question was, if we're looking at a water and sewer rate study and we're trying to figure out what rate we will choose in the future and how it will actually impact our residents, I asked in August if we could also use data concerning the median average household income and have it be a component of this study, right? Because ultimately, we can do a lot of calculations, there can be a lot of work that's put into this, but if our residents can't afford the new price structure, then it's almost a detriment to our residents. And so in August, during a board meeting, I made this request, and I was told that this request would be made of whoever was doing our study. In this case, it's Baxter and Woodman. So to clarify, did that occur?
So what we asked them to do was look at the industry-wide as well as ways that we could address those who might have a more difficult time paying for water. Because remember, normally, this is a enterprise fund, everybody pays for this the same, that water's water, and it has a rate to it. So we said to them, our board has an interest in providing some relief to those who meet certain thresholds, and we asked them to look industry-wide as well as the format that we had put into place currently. And so what he said yesterday was, that there isn't an industry standard, that everybody isn't doing everything a certain way or different ways, and that he kind of explained what some people are doing, and that he felt like his recommendation was what we were doing here, he modified to fit into this fixed rate meter rate. Anything further than that, I would have to have him explain further what he knows from working in the field.
Right, because I believe
he's the expert. I just
Right,
know.
and I understand that, but was it communicated to Baxter and Woodman that this is something?
What I just explained was what we communicated to him.
So it was not communicated to Baxter and Woodman that a requested component of this study was to look at the median average household income?
I guess I'm unclear, and maybe TJ, you can read something, what that would do. We know what the median income rate is. You would have to then translate that into a rate structure that would be fair or equitable or whatever word you want to do across all of the customer accounts that we had.
Correct, and that's why I made the request in August before this study was even created. So are we looking at skewed data?
No, we're looking at data based on how he explained it and how I tried to re-explain it today.
Okay, thank you. Could we talk a little bit more about the non-revenue water discrepancy. There was a slide that he provided. It's on page 4, I believe, of your water study.
That's a water loss.
1, 2, 3, 4. Page 4. So it says annual water purchase versus water billed, and it shows like a discrepancy. And when I asked the gentleman yesterday of the discrepancy, he said that could be leaks, water main breaks, metering, meter inaccuracy, and systemic data errors. But he spoke about that in a general sense. So could I just have a better understanding of what specifically in our village is leading to this discrepancy?
Well, I guess a very simple answer would be we probably don't know. We're all guessing because if we specifically knew, then we would try to create that, correct it. I think we're hoping that all new meters, which we had aging meters, were all replaced last year. And so we're hoping to see that the water loss is reduced. But I think that you guys all do different programs that try to identify where that loss could be as well.
Would part of that be maybe fire hydrants?
Maybe I can talk about that for a second. So Tim was correct. Probably the largest single volume of lost water, non-revenue water, is through water main breaks. And if you look at the pipe that's in front of you there and you see those holes on top, if you imagine that pipe pressurized up to 70 PSI, there's water going straight out of that. And all of that water is non-revenue water. That is water that we've paid for and we've lost. That's the majority of it. After that, you have things like water that is lost through metering. So for example, you have meters that run slow. Now, fortunately in our case, that really isn't the case anymore. Am I breaking up here?
Yes.
Okay. So put it on this, so don't speak into it. Okay, so the second kind is through water loss through meters. Thus, that's not a huge amount of lost water. We have new meters in
I'm
place.
sorry, TJ, we still can't hear you.
We're still having AV issues.
All right, that's the second part. The third part is we also have, well, and let me jump back to the first one with just lost water through water main breaks. There's water main breaks that we know of, and those are the ones that blow out of the ground. Then there are water main breaks that have occurred that are underground that we don't see. And those could run maybe for weeks, maybe for months, maybe forever. We do something called leak detection. Typically we do it every 2 years. We're doing it next year, where we go through town and it's an audiometric exam of the system where it's like a giant stethoscope that we stick on every hydrant and every device that we can get access to, and we listen, in effect. Computers do most of the work now. And it'll tell us where a leak is. We then go and fix the leak. It could be on a hydrant. Then the second thing is every time we have a fire, we're not hooking hoses up, or we're not hooking meters up to the fire engine to tell us how much water that they've blown out through the hydrant. That's not really a thing. So we try to calculate that if we can. We try to assign a number to it, but we're probably not. In fact, I pretty much guarantee we're not accurate on that.
Right.
So that's also, again, depending on the year that you have, the source of a lot of water loss, millions of gallons. So the list is as long as your arm for areas that we can lose water. We have stolen water. We have places where people have straight piped their meter, where they've removed the meter, put a straight pipe in its place, and just taken water. We occasionally catch that, not very often.
But we would have caught all of those on the meter change.
Right, we would have caught all of those. In fact,
The meter, yeah, and then you have some where they might have tapped into their water service before the meter and gotten free water that way.
yes, we refer to those as bypasses.
Right.
And we caught, maybe it was a dozen during the water meter changeout. Maybe it wasn't quite that many, but chances are they went right back in after we caught them. So there are a lot of places where we get non-revenue water. The ideal is about 10%. Often that's considered aspirational, but AWWA standard, which is what we try to follow, is 10%. And I'm feeling pretty good that we're going to be there soon.
Well, and as you see in front, if we're and we tried to explain this yesterday, is that we've had a lot more water breaks over the years. With each year, we're having more and more. As we replace the pipe, you would hope that we would have less, and then less water loss.
Right now, I'm replacing every pipe in town about 12 inches at a time, which is the least efficient way to do it.
You said 12, so 1 foot at a time?
That's the width of a sleeve. So every time I go down, most of the time, that one's a bad one. That one, we had to cut about 8 feet of pipe out, so that one was an 8-foot repair. But usually we go down, there's a hole about the size of a quarter or a $50, we put a sleeve on it.
Thank you. Are we able to go back to Baxter and Woodman and talk about what percentage increase we would need to be at to break even? I think we had a slide, I can't find it, where it said that for this fiscal year, we're on track to be in the red 400,000 if we do not change
Yes, that is correct. If based on the current, we would be in the hole for 400,000.
And that's this fiscal year?
Yes.
Okay, so can we be provided with additional information to what that percentage would be for us to break even? Because what I would like to see, or maybe even be considered, is for next fiscal year, not initially starting at that 4.5%. Maybe a goal can just be for us to break even and then kind of ease, almost like on a sliding scale, kind of ease into that rate increase.
I mean, we can come up with anything. I think this is just, I'm going to be straightforward. We've gone 7 years without a water rate increase. We have some significant infrastructure needs. We have a strategic plan where the village board said that we needed to, number one priority was to address those needs. I think that the consultants came back and did a very thorough job. We tried to get the best out there to look at it, and with expertise from a lot of communities. And I think 4.5% is less than what Chicago is passing on to us. Chicago's passing on a 5% increase for the next 7 years of our contract. Jawa is just passing that through to us, and we're recommending a 4.5% increase. So the 4.5% is going to be 5.5% short on the water side, and we still have the infrastructure to address. We have some serious needs here in the community, and I think it's our recommendation to move forward with the recommendation for Baxter and Woodman. I guess you would have to ask that question, Trustee Bancole, of the rest of the board to determine where the comfort level is from the board, but it's staff's recommendation that this is a need that we need to address.
And I don't, go ahead.
And
yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I don't disagree with the recommendation. I do think that the 4.5% is fair, but you also just said it yourself. We haven't had a water rate increase in several years. And so I don't want to shock our residents, right? It kind of needs to be incremental, right? Because I understand that we need the funds, we have infrastructure projects that need to be taken care of, but
right, but
also,
when the city of Chicago is raising us 5% a year, it's kind of hard for us to increment far less than what they're increasing our rates every year.
I understand, but every water account is attached to a family that is
I understand
working
that.
to try to afford.
Believe me, I don't wanna
these
pay more
costs,
for water than
right?
I have to, but, I mean, I also wanna have water.
I also want to have water.
Because
I-
water's a necessity. There's other things in my life that I can live without, that I can cut out of my budget so I can pay for my water.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. I would just appreciate seeing those numbers, if that is possible.
I think you need to talk to the board.
Well,
I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of scenarios. I need direction from the board as to where you would like the consultant to go back and look.
Well, if we do some type of increment, it's going to increase the gap
Right.
in the dollar amount. We can't be doing that. I think what we were presented was to look at the larger pipes and the larger users, and that makes sense to me. So,
I was just at a meeting today at the Cook County Housing Authority, and they're dealing with a situation with the city of Robbins, Illinois, where they have a huge water issue where they have residents now that don't have safe drinking water. The city can't afford to do the repairs that are needed to provide the safe water. They've got lead pipes. They got a lot of problems going on in Robbins. And so I, as much as anyone, abhor the idea of rate increases, but I also think I fear no water at all, or having a decreased supply of water because of the fiscal moves that we may make here. I think that if we do this, we can do this with an idea of being sensitive to people who may have problems with affording the water. And maybe we need to, for people who want assistance, maybe we need to have a remedial or a training program where we come in and have a program where people can learn how to be responsible users of the water.
Right, water conservation.
Doing certain things like making sure the toilet flappers are working properly, that the washers on the sinks are working properly, and that they're turning off outside faucets, limiting maybe even watering grass and doing those things. If we can maybe educate people as to what they can do to lower their usage of the water, I think we will be doing them a great service, because the rates are going to increase. Unfortunately, City of Chicago dictates that. And if we have people that come in and request assistance with their water bill, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, we'll give you a break, we'll give you a discount, maybe we need to make a requirement that you got to sit through this course on proper water management and conservation in your home, and you do that, and then maybe then we can give you, whatever the board may decide we want to do in terms of assistance with the water bill. But it's a tough situation, and I would like to see us do something like that with the mind of providing aid, but also providing some education and training to help people manage their use of water. Because as we found out today in some of the situations in Robbins, one of the main reasons why they had this high usage in one of the units that the housing authority manages was that people simply weren't replacing the flappers in the toilets. And so the toilets were running constantly. They're running constantly, and then when you get this high water bill, people say, well, I can't afford it, I need some help. Well, maybe if if someone had come in and spent $8 on replacing, and maybe even less than that, replacing the flapper on the toilet, you might be in a situation where your water bill wasn't $70, it was $40,
Well,
and
yeah.
can do that. So anyway,
Well, and one of the things, the benefits of the new water meter, when we put the new water meters in last year was that, or this last year, was that now from the finance department, they can see if anybody's water bill is exceeding what they normally pay. And then they can call that individual and say, you might have a water issue you need to look at, you need to see whether you have a leak, whether or in there is somewhere. And then Remy included in your update that we have about 22 individuals that are currently on payment plans right now, and we continue to try to coach the residents, when they come in, about the discount programs that the board put in place last year. And we will continue to try to find ways to help those individuals do that.
Yeah.
And that is built into this recommendation, those discounted rates.
So if we could maybe consider that, maybe putting together some type of instructional program, whether it's an
Sure.
online course or whatever, to where people would have to complete that before we even let them get onto a purchase plan or payment plan. You got to do this, you got to go through these steps, you got to do this, and then maybe you can get on a payment plan. But if we don't correct the behavior, they're going to be back. They're going to be back. If it's something that, you know, can be corrected, and many times, these are Section 8 people, a lot of these with Section 8 vouchers that were having these problems. So, you know.
Well, and then
we
there's
gotta-
always that discussion about whether should you try to forego a rate increase for as long as possible and then put it in place, or do you help spread it, you know, do you do a regular automatic increase every year so that people are used to that? So should we have done a 4.5% increase every year? Remember that John said this isn't done in 30, this is an ongoing forever circular process, and I just think we're gonna see, especially with Chicago setting that 5% increase rate for the next at least 7 years, that we're gonna see a 4.5%.
I just don't want to see us end up like Jackson, Mississippi, and Robbins and other places where, you know, there's no water.
Well, and
because they haven't maintained it.
we all here, we want the infrastructure to be in, you know, good condition and operating correctly and most efficiently, and, but at the same time, looking at the cost too, and so this is kind of the best place we could get to, long term.
If I can just give my opinion here. So I was listening to this forensic accountant, and I heard that he set the low medium income at about $33,400, and he's right, there's nothing across the board. I know that our medium income here in Hanover Park is not that low. Even for Section 8, it's higher than that. So when I look at that, and then I look at what Trustee Porter is saying, which is something we did when we were helping people pay water, including paying water here in Hanover Park. We said, we're going to pay this water bill for you, but you're going to take a class on budgeting during COVID so that you can pay the next one. And we did that. So that's something that's doable. But when I look at the water rate, we're looking at a 42-cent rate increase, right? From 22 to 23. Is that right? And then we're looking at $1.48 for the infrastructure service charge for those of us who have the 3/4 inch meter. So $1.48 plus 42 cents. Now, I don't want to say that that's not a lot of money, because for some folks even that is, but I think this is doing it in the most cautious, equitable way that I've seen, so that when even those in our discounted program come fiscal year 30, they're paying $11.57 versus the $24 that we had originally thought of. So this is painful, but I feel like it's needed, and I tell you this as someone who had lead poisoning because of issues with water, and whose first year in Hanover Park had massive swimming pool in front of my home. So I feel like this is painful but necessary, and it's doing it in increments that I think, you know, we're talking 42 cents and $1.48. I think that's doable.
Anyone else?
Nope. Thank you, Trustee Porter, Trustee Gutierrez, and Trustee Kemper. I respect the will of the board, so if that's not the direction we want to go into, then I respect that.
You can still get your information.
I don't see where we have a choice.
Well, on the information, I think that was on 4.5, yeah. And then the last thing, I do just want to express and just have it on record that I do have some concerns. Although I very much see the benefits of a fixed scale meter rate structure, I do have some concerns about the 4-inch businesses and that jump. They will now be paying over $500 a month for water when they probably were not paying those amounts before. So I just hope that.
Could you speak up? I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's great.
Can you hear? Okay.
I'm sorry to disrupt you, but I apologize. I just wasn't hearing you.
No problem. Thanks for letting me know. Just wanted to have it on record that I do just have some concerns there, and I hope that this is communicated to those 4-inch water meter entities in a very clear way, that we are, moving towards this structure, and it is being done in an equitable fashion. Last but not least, I think that overall this conversation has shown me that we are doing all that we can to maintain our water enterprise. We have thoughtful staff and thoughtful board members that really are trying to move forward in an equitable fashion, and I really do appreciate that. But when I look at the median, and thank you, Lisa, for bringing up some of that data. I think I was looking a little bit more for Baxter and Woodman to try to include that in their calculations and see if there would be an impact there, but thank you for bringing up that information. But when I look at how our median income and that component wasn't included in the study, and when I look at the 4%, the 4.5% increase, although I very much understand it, it is a jump. And then I look at the 10% late fees, the $50 to turn your water back on, the $100 if you want your water turned on after 3 p.m. It's a lot of, in my opinion, take, and I just think that there needs to be some additional systems set in place to ensure ensure continual water access for all our residents. Which brings me to what I discussed over a year ago, which was instituting an ordinance or a change to our ordinance in which we would prohibit water shutoffs for residential and tenant households, but commercial and industrial entities would still be subjected to these shutoffs. I mean, I think what has been presented to us where the 4-inch and the 3-inch and the 2-inch will bear, some of that, bear a greater financial responsibility versus some of the 4-inch and the 1-inch is a similar fashion. I'm asking that we consider and ensure that our residents' water is not shut off with all of these, taking into account that we have all of these fees, increases, fines just to turn your water back on. I mean, it's a lot, and I think that we need to do all that we can to ensure that our residents always have access to water. So I would ask that the board consider this ordinance change.
I would agree with you that it troubles me that people would have their water shut off. And I think that in the past, we had set up some steps that would have to occur before someone had their water shut off. And we set up some safeguards so that at a certain amount of time, they were notified that they were in danger. Then they were notified of what resources are available to help them to maintain the water, and they're given a number of assistance and steps along the way before the water service is actually terminated. I'm still not sure how effectively we're communicating that to the residents, and maybe we need to review.
Fresh.
You know, how we're promoting that and making sure our residents are available of those steps and the safeguards that we put in place. I also share your concern with the fee structure for fines and getting things restored, you know, the restoral fees and all of that. And I think those can be visited as we can take a look and see what we can do to make sure that they aren't creating additional hardships with the fees, you know, that we, for turn-on fees or restoral of fees and the things of that nature. We can revisit and we can look at those and make adjustments as the board sees fit on that. But in some cases, unfortunately, after we've gone through all the steps and the safeguards, it's inevitable that there are going to be people who put themselves in a position where the water is going to be terminated. But I would feel better knowing that we have at least availed ourselves to make them know of all of the resources that are available to prevent that from happening, and that we've made a good conscious, good faith effort to assist.
Was it like 4 years or 5 years ago when we touched on that last time?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that too. And we have that whole outline of all of the steps, and we can talk about putting something in the highlighter and looking at that again. And we also, that the last time we had the discussion, added this step to giving them that one more notice.
Yeah, because we had like a three-step process, right?
Delivered to their house, that they were in danger. So we've tried to add some steps, but we'll outline that all so that you can see that again and see what we're doing, at least currently, before you have a further discussion on it.
So I would like, I mean, in my own life, I've gone through some hard times where, you know, we're in danger of having those kind of things happen. So I understand what it feels like to be in jeopardy of having, you know, your water terminated. Thank God we're in a much better situation now, but I can relate to that. So, you know, I want to make sure that we're being sensitive, and I think we have been trying to show its sensitivity. So if we can do something to promote those safeguards that we put in place, I think that will be a help. And again, maybe we can revisit those fees and restoral and shut-off fees.
Trustee
and
Porter?
look at those and make sure
Can
they're
we,
not prohibited.
Okay,
can we agree to, you know,
Lisa?
can we agree to bring that at another, like, can we ask
Yeah.
for that? Normally we email for it. I think there's more than 3 of us that would agree.
Well, we could just do a workshop and we could walk through each of the steps. I mean,
I'm also looking at the fees because it feels a little bit like reminds me of those poor laws where I can't pay my bill, but now to get it restored, I have to pay even more. So looking at how we're doing that in an equitable way, just like this structure is set in place. So if we can bring that up again, I think that'd be great, because we've been discussing this since 2019, I think. So, thank you.
So just to clarify, we're asking for a workshop to discuss fees, water shutoffs. I just want to be clear. And that
It's shut-off
process that
process. So,
you
Right,
discussed.
yeah, to revisit the process that we already put in
Okay.
place.
Well, I would also like to add to that, just looking at what an ordinance would look like. I know Attorney Paul isn't here tonight, but what an ordinance would look like in which water shutoffs didn't exist in our village. Thank you.
Before we start working on an ordinance, I'd like to go through the process, have that discussion and see if that's what, because I think if we're going to talk about the process, we should talk about where we were before. So the board has taken a lot of steps over the years to try to improve, and they went from 2 months every 2 months billing to 1 month billing to try to have everyone be able to manage their budgets better. And what we found was that when we didn't have shutoffs, when was that during COVID, during 2020, people really had a difficult time not having that structure, that monthly structure too, and it was difficult for a lot of people to catch up and get back on schedule. So we can talk about all those things, but sometimes I think when we think that we're doing them a favor, it's not necessarily helpful. But the
So
no,
we've
the
we've
no
had all
shutoffs.
those experiences, and we went to the monthly building, and the staff down there knows what the alternatives are. We went through all those steps. So if you want a workshop to review the cycles that we went through, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not an advocate of, no payment, no turn-offs.
Right.
We've had a bad experience with it, and that impacted people even more. A lot of times, people just find out they turned off my water, I forgot about the bill or whatever. So I don't wanna go down that path again, because there were a lot of people that were impacted when they, oh, I don't have to pay, I can
Right.
live with
That-
that. So the cause and effect is
You
not
will
really
have some people
as
that
fair as you
won't
wanna
pay the
think
bill.
it is. That's all I'm saying.
I respect your decision, and I also respect your decision as well. I think there's always gonna be bad actors in any type of scenario, but I would still like to see that data.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, how most decisions are made by data and just
But
being
I thought the
fully
staff
informed.
did respond when you asked for some additional information.
Well, now we are here talking about a study in which we're increasing rates. You guys, you know, have said you don't wanna do incremental, you just wanna do the 4%. We're talking about the fees, we're talking about how median income wasn't included, right? There's all these components that
There
are now
are,
included
there are.
that weren't a part of the conversation a year ago. So that's why
No, that's fine.
I'm asking for more.
No, we can do that, but I also live in a world, you gotta pay the pipe. And the city of Chicago doesn't give us a discount for those that don't wanna pay for their water. And it's, and we have to maintain our infrastructure, because there are communities that are suffering today because they found ways to work around that. That's not who we are. This board has told staff, we want to maintain our infrastructure, we want to help keep our costs down by maintaining the infrastructure. That's preventive maintenance as far as I'm concerned for the community. So it's important, and it's good to have the dialogue. I like the dialogue, so, you know, we'll take that on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes my questions on water.
I am ready to move on to trustee reports. Are we done with the water department?
Wait,
We're done with water.
Okay. Juliana, we're done with water.
I just wanted to confirm, we're done with water, right? Okay. I have no further report then.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Sorry, just to clarify, so are we done talking about the budget as a whole then?
So we've been presented the budget.
Or,
There's more discussion coming, because you have hearings and whatnot.
So I'll go back to the last slide of the presentation. So the next steps on the budget are that on the November 3rd, I will, under my report, will cancel the workshop part of the evening, and we'll have the regular meeting. But then at this time, under my report, I will at least walk through the community contributions, because that's usually a slide in this process, and we just kind of carved it out. So we'll talk about that at that time. If you have any further questions or issues or changes or regarding the budget, I would prefer if you could get them to me ahead of time so I can answer them, but we could also have a discussion on the 3rd under that part of the meeting. But then we will prepare the final budget for posting in the clerk's office, and then we'll have the public hearing on December 1st, and then we'll have approval on December 1st as well.
thank you.
That's the next steps in the process. So if there's anything that you've heard over the last couple days that you have questions about, if you could give us a call and we'll try to answer those. And then if there's anything further for discussion as the whole board together, or changes, then we should do that on the 3rd.
Very good.
So then, in your timeline, when would we discuss additional budget requests?
Like what?
Is now the time? That's what I'm asking.
I'm not aware
Or
of
is
any
it November 3rd?
additional budget requests.
If you have a request for the budget that you know of right now, if you could pose it right now so that we can kind of get the sense from the board that if it's not in the document, we'll have to make adjustments if the
Okay.
board is.
That works.
So what are those requests?
Yes. So I kind of already touched on streetlights, and TJ and John, you said that we have an ongoing list, right? Okay. Is there a way we could think about more cameras in terms of public safety in our village? So there's been an increase, I would say, in theft and like package theft, car theft, all sorts of things of that nature. And I know that maybe a crime deterrent or one way that makes our residents feel a little bit more safe is having those like Ring cameras. I was wondering if there is a way in which we could look at some sort of pilot program in which we could provide subsidized Ring cameras or anything of that nature. I think it's already been done in Tanglewood, but if that is something that we could think about, if it's too late for this budget season, that it makes sense, but maybe something to just think about.
Yeah, in Tanglewood, we have worked with Habitat. They were able to get some grant funding for the doorbell cameras, and we assisted with some installs over there. I believe that program's going to continue next year already, but that's something we could look into and find out for sure. You know, for that I'm only speaking of Tanglewood there, but you know, additionally, you brought up public safety cameras, and I during the capital budget workshop presented our request for 10 license plate reader capable cameras, you know, that we intend to put up to help us identify vehicles involved in serious crimes much quicker, and that's part of our proposal.
But if you have other neighborhoods or areas that you're hearing of concern, then maybe we can work with Habitat and understand how that grant process and apply for it in other areas of town.
Okay, because that grant is only applicable to the Greenbrook Tanglewood area.
I think it's because it's coming through Habitat and Habitat's working in that area, correct?
Right, correct.
And they're focusing those benefits in that area.
Okay, and is that the only section of Hanover Park that has a program of that nature?
That I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so.
But you're talking about the Ring doorbells, right?
Right, that's what they have, right?
Right.
Right, and so, sorry, Chief, you said the current budget has space for the license plate readers?
LPRs.
Right, correct. 10 of them to start.
Okay, and, okay, I guess then a further discussion, I guess, is needed with DuPage Habitat for Humanity.
To find out their grant.
Yeah.
We can do that, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe I missed it because on the 6th I came late. Have we talked about parking? Issues with parking, how to address that? I know, but it's a big problem. Did this happen on October 6th?
Well, I guess what part of parking, if it means, if it's parking on certain streets in a certain fashion or timeline, or no parking or allowable parking, those don't really have a budget implication. So those would just be concerns that we could address through the police department and have a discussion about with engineering and streets. If it's some other form of parking, like a parking lot or something like that, then we haven't, but we can have a conversation. I guess, can you tell me more about where your concern is?
Yeah, I think we hear it quite often. There are certain neighborhoods that have issues with parking. Greenbrook Tanglewood area is one of them. I believe the townhomes behind Veranda is another area that has parking issues. And I'm asking this question because I actually, not too long ago, I still need to meet with the resident, but the resident, a resident reached out to me and is so passionate about trying to address this issue that she actually created this parking proposal, and she has pictures, and I still need to go through it, but she's quite upset about the parking issues and where she lives. And I know it's a continual issue. I think we talk about it at least once a year. And so I just want to make sure that, when we think about where we're allocating funds, that, if improvements do need to be made, and I understand it falls in, different areas, police, public works, but if improvements do need to be made, that we're thinking about that in FY '23.
When we have village-owned property, we try to identify where we can put in parking, so we put in one on Astor Avenue this last year. We put an additional parking lot in Village Center. I think that we'll see more of that to meet the parking needs with the development that's going on down there. But then we have other situations where, I don't know, time flies, but years ago, Tanglewood Homeowners Association came and recommended parking lots, and the residents didn't want the parking lots. And so I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion, but
it's been cause and effect. A number of years ago, Astor Avenue was a big deal. If you drive down Astor Avenue today, you'll see cutouts for the additional parking. We took a proposal that we were going to shift some property, and we made additional parking behind Astor Avenue. When you go into Old Salem, we cut out some, between the sidewalk and the curb. We opened that up for permit parking for Old Salem area.
Old Salem, yeah, thank you. That's
It's always cause and effect. Tanglewood, it's always been, I think during the recent, disease, COVID, thank you. During the COVID time, a lot of young people moved back with their families, and so we had all these additional cars, and now we're starting to see that, people are saying, okay, I've been here long enough, and I'm going back out. And so the housing market, there's a shortage. And, but, we evolve through those things, and we really, where the critical areas, police they do a study, and they really look at it. We've been pretty amenable to trying to cause and affect this stuff. We can't really take our streets that are designed for everybody parking in their driveway, and let everybody park on, overnight. It just gets too narrow. And, but we do, I've seen over the years, we've been pretty sensitive to it. When Senator Dolan was in there, he said, boy, somebody hollered at me in my office about Astor Avenue. So he got us some money to do that. And, that's been the best of, we've had the best of worlds. And we really try to be sensitive to it and be patient with it, because a lot of times there's a flare-up and it's not really the flare-up that we think it is.
So Mayor, you want to go ahead and read it, Dave, that section?
You were the chief when we did that, so.
Just a reminder, I was reminding the village manager that in our strategic plan, we have evaluate parking for Old Salem, Tanglewood, and Kingsbury.
This year.
For this year, due
It
fourth
would be the
quarter.
evaluation in fourth quarter, and then any.
Of 2023.
Of 23, and then
For Old
budget
Salem
would
and
then
where else?
flow in 25, for
Old Salem, Tanglewood,
Kingsbury.
And what?
Kingsbury.
And we're gonna, review the.
Evaluate the parking in those areas, those
This
three
year?
areas, this in 2023. And then in 2024, if there's any budget implications based on that evaluation, you'll see it in that budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
But if you have other areas in this example that you gave, please relate to us where that is.
That's good to know. Thank you very much. The last thing I wanted to discuss was the LORE program that we currently have staff members that are participating in. I'm really excited that the village is a part of this. I think that the knowledge and the information sharing that's probably taking place is really going to serve as a benefit to our residents, really to the community at large. But I do know that when it comes to operationalizing, excuse me, you need money to operationalize things. And so I would like to know if we have some sort of DEI budget proposal for this fiscal year. Because we're gonna have all this really great information, all these really great tools, and you need money to put it into action.
Yeah. So, HR's budget has money for training, for staff training in the areas of DEI. What I'm hearing they're going through right now is won't necessarily have a specific budget implication. It'll be more staff time. So we'll take the tools that they're using and the process they're using, and then we'll start looking at our policies and programs and initiatives and spending time evaluating those and changing those. And in some cases, there might be a budget need, and in others, it'll be just changing our practices one way or the other. So for example, they outlined the program that they're using for their homework project for the language line. But so that in that scenario, we may have the need for funding for different language line or language service, or translating the highlighter into another language, or some kind of, there may be recommendations like that. We can always make a budget amendment if there's a budget need this next year. I have not budgeted like just a lump sum amount of money in anticipation of what that is, because I can't gauge right now what that would be. Other than we've made sure that we had money for training. And we know that we need to budget staff time to address what is going to come out of this knowledge that they're gaining. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think my concern is that if we do not have a budget and we've gone through this training, how are we supposed to operationalize the ideas that come out of this?
Well,
So I guess what I'm saying is, can we have that conversation before we pass fiscal year 2023? Otherwise, we would wait a whole year.
No. So the strategic goal holds us accountable.
Because we don't know what's gonna be, so.
Right.
So the strategic plan will hold us accountable, and we will be giving you updates twice a year. So come spring, when we give our update on the strategic plan and where we're at on all of those things, my guess will be that Barry and Dave will say, okay, we're finished with this training. This is what's come out of it. Here's where we're at on the DEI goals that were outlined in the strategic plan. And by the way, we really think that in the next couple months, we should do X, Y, and Z, and that's gonna have a budget implication. And we're either gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna take the mural money and put it towards that. I'm kidding. But, or we're going to make another budget adjustment so we can do that because that's a higher priority. Or I'm gonna say to Remy, can we do a budget amendment and take it from fund balance?
But why would we do budget amendments if we can just have a conversation now about our specific needs?
Because I don't know what our specific
Right, that's
needs
what
are.
I'm saying. Let's have this conversation before we pass a budget, instead of going back and doing this piecemeal budget
They're not even
amendments.
gonna be finished with their training until into the next fiscal year.
I
So-
understand.
And so I would really like to finish out this commitment of their learning that we've committed to, and then from there, take those best practices and apply it to our organization. while at the same time doing the required training that we're required to have, that we've been recommended to take at the staff level. So I'm not saying we're not focusing on it, but I'm just saying I'd really like, before we start putting 10,000, 20,000, 2,000 into the budget, I just don't know what that number is. But I know that we have fiscal resources to address those things once they come about and have been identified.
That makes sense.
And we don't really have, we don't have any time between now and the end of the year when this needs to be approved to have an in-depth discussion about that as well. You know, I really wanted to give it the time that it deserves as well. Do you know what I'm saying? We have no workshops, we have.
I think we were chosen as a part of the pilot program for the DEI initiative because of our willingness to work together as a staff with board support. I mean, when this was kicking off, you know, I was, you know, the co-chair of the Diversity Forum. I invited Lisa in and Dave to be a part of that, and this was the outcome. So I believe, you know, this is an evolution and a what I would call something that we take on personally, and that we demonstrate that we can integrate this within our organization. I think we're that size, that we can do that effectively and efficiently, and I think we're all here to challenge that and to see the cause and effects. And I think that's because of our good history with this. I think we're in a good shape to model that. And as things roll out, if they need some budget dollars to do that, I think that'll come to us, and I'm sure you'll say no.
Who's, I'll say no?
No, I'm teasing.
Okay. So just to clarify, any budget amendments would be coming out of the general fund? Yes. Where would the, where?
Well, they're not coming out of the fire fund.
Well, I guess most likely it's going to come from the general fund.
Okay. Can we then have a further discussion about having a more, what's the word I'm looking for? Concrete budget concerning DEI looking towards fiscal year 2024?
Absolutely, because that's a goal in the strategic plan to do that.
I guess I don't understand what's missing.
That's,
Huh?
pardon?
I don't understand what's missing.
So they're going through something in which they're trying to operationalize DEI within the village, with our practices. And what I'm saying is, you can't operationalize something without money. You can't do these things for free. So how exactly are we going to operationalize or see these things in action without money? And I think what Juliana was saying is that we've, I guess, come to the end of this process. More time is needed.
Okay, so what triggers for me is when you said the budget's concrete. A budget is not concrete. A budget is a recommendation. And if we have cause and effect, we need to do things through the year. Staff will come to us and say, I need to do this or that. And so we can modify and adjust. So I don't want to talk about a budget being concrete.
Right, but what I asked for
She's talking about having a line item.
is just, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Right.
Okay, we're all right.
I guess that was the wrong term, a line item.
There's a few words that can trigger my thought.
Okay, okay. And
Thank you. Are we ready to move on?
that is all I,
Thank you.
Does
Thank you.
anybody else have anything for the budget?
Good. I don't disagree with any of your, what are
So,
you adding to the budget?
I don't have any money to add to the budget. But I hadn't talked to Trustee Bincole, but my suggestion was going to be that looking at our strategic plan, we talked about the possibility of hiring a consultant to do DEI policies. Now, this was before her suggestion, right now, what she talked about. And so I can see how you're thinking that first they go through this training, and then we can make an amendment to the budget so that we can start putting some of those practices in place with the possibility of hiring a DEI consultant in place. That was actually written into our strategic plan. So is that right? Am I?
Yeah, I think we feel like
Okay.
we're lucky that we were chosen for this, because maybe we'll be able to do it in-house. Like, I don't know yet whether they'll come back and say,
Okay.
we think we can do it in-house, and we have the tools now to do that, or we'll need outside help. I don't know where that will land.
Outside help is always good.
So they got a grant
So
to run through this, and the outcome of that may be
that
a DEI
was it, yeah,
structure or initiative or resolution.
right. The other thing, so HR has a line item for trainings, right,
Correct.
already?
Yes.
Okay. Not sure what's been happening lately. This little guy hardly ever rings. He's been ringing a lot. And so, would it be possible, I know we discussed this at our CIDC ordinance workshop, to get a list of the topics of training?
I think that
And
was sent, wasn't it?
I know, yeah, I know you sent it. Would it be possible to resend it to me? My brain is,
It's been sent. I can
you
forward
have
to
it?
you. Yes.
Okay.
We'll resend it to
I'm
you.
razzled.
Send it to everyone again.
Okay, thank you, because that's going to help me answer a lot of our customer service questions as well. So that was it. And then the third one and my final one, and I'm not sure if this has to do with the budget, or there needs to be a budget for this, and I can discuss further at my mini report here, but the only true historical site that we have left in this town is the Executive House. And everything else has been demolished or updated so much so that it has no historical relevance, I think. And so I would love for admin to look at the conservation of that historical place. I don't know if there has to be a budget for this. I don't know if it's just something we look at through economic development. But I'd like for us to look at that, because if that place goes, Ontarioville doesn't really have a historic place. Well, the church. But that's the only one that hasn't been altered, and that is true to the area. So if that's something that we can look at, and if there has to be a line item for that, I vote that the mural funding be used.
I think at the last time this was brought up, the request was for us to look at ways to make sure that Executive House is prevented from being torn down.
Yes.
So there's lots of different ways to do that. So one, the most expensive is to purchase it, but there are other ways to prevent it from being torn down without purchasing it. And so there's pros and cons to all of that, and so we're working on that to
Okay.
make sure that it doesn't get torn down. But I
Okay.
don't know that I have a recommendation. It may be over time, as that area evolves, as to how that's used or maintained or et cetera.
We could take a leap on that issue when you and I meet
Well, we can
with
have
Nova
that,
Grutter,
maybe
which
we
is
can not have
overdue
that
a couple
conversation in open
months.
session.
Okay?
But we can look at
I-
it, right? Can we look at preserving that home somehow?
That was requested a
Yes,
while
yes,
back,
okay.
that you all said that you didn't want that building to go away. So we are
So we
working
don't
on
need
that.
any additional funding to make that happen, to make,
We're
looking at it.
evaluating it. Yep. We're making sure that it doesn't go away.
thank you, Julianne.
Okay.
If not, there's always funding in the mural. Thank you. Yeah.
Apologies. One more thing.
Trustee Bancole has
I
a
apologize.
comment.
When we're looking at just all the federal funds regarding climate change, environmental justice, and what the Biden administration has put out, I don't know if this will translate into more staff hours or consultants, not sure, but if we could also make just EV readiness a priority, and if we could also consider monitoring air quality pollution. We have Lake Street that goes through a good chunk of Hanover Park, and those that probably live on Lake Street probably bear a disproportionate amount of atmospheric pollution versus those that don't live on a big major road. So I would just ask that when we think about these federal funds, federal programs, that we try to make some of these things a priority so we are able to capture some of these federal dollars. And I don't know if that means more staffing time or consultants.
Yeah,
So
I
do
think
just
that,
wanna
I think
flag
that I kind of stressed yesterday, and I didn't do it because we don't want to do the work. It's just so that you know that these grants take a lot of time. So, we are working on them, and we're making staff available to work on them and evaluate them. And as John said, and TJ said, we've even at times hired a consultant to come help us seek these dollars. And I think we've been successful. We'll pay attention to those. If you know of specific grants that are out there, if you come across them that are available, please send them our way, and we can evaluate to see how we could incorporate them into our operation.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think the board needs to know that the state is very slow in responding to the grants that we've applied for and have gotten and have gone through the, what was it, the one organization? Because TJ, the EV thing, where's that initiative? I mean, we've got it with the state.
Well, through the DCEO, you're correct, sir. It's been very, very challenging. There is one right now, the grant that we're actually working on right now for the water main. We don't have a grant agreement on that yet, although the project is concluding. And we expect to have the grant agreement, although promised originally in June and then in August. I'm feeling pretty good that we're going to have it by the end of the year.
Okay, because there was that one with that included the electronic vehicle or electronic charging.
We've never seen, that's not moving at all. That's not one that's not moving.
Do you remember which legislator it was that was supporting that one? Was it Mussman?
You know, sir, I apologize. I do not recall that.
Okay. What's that organization name that everything's always stuck in?
DCEO.
DCEO, okay. So we have a lot of these things on our, that we've prepared and been looking for, and some have been sitting in the queue for 3 years. So I just want to.
Yeah, they're multi-year.
Yeah, they're multi-year. So hopefully we will get some relief on those. And the things you're asking for, I think we're on board with. If she's listening. Village Clerk's report?
Okay, tomorrow is the trunk or treat at the Park District, so if you have nothing to do between 6 to 8 p.m., come out and visit and support the Park District. I think they have like 40 vehicles or something, so it should be a pretty large one. And don't forget to vote for the Halloween decorating contest. We have 16 houses. Tell your neighbors that look awesome to participate. We still have some signs. They're all up in the yard, so yeah, that is all I have.
Thank you.
Yes, Dave.
The Corporation Council. Oh, Dave, yes.
Just a reminder on that, in the coming week, you will be getting your specific survey link to the contest, because you as the board pick one of the awards.
Board favorite. You'll be getting a
Board
link, so
favorite.
don't forget to vote for your board favorite house. Go visit the houses. There's one that is set to music with lights. It's very cool on Aspen,
They just
right by Old Salem. So go check them out. They're pretty cool.
Who's going to fill in for me? Or do you want to take 5?
Trustee Gutierrez?
I could fill.
Trustee,
Corporation Council?
I am pleased to report that I had no report.
thanks,
you very
Mr.
much.
Ken.
I'll fill in for you, go.
Thank you.
Nice to have you with us tonight.
All right, go ahead. We got you.
Okay. Lisa? Lisa?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for your patience with me during my absences. It's good to be back. As you know, where I work, we're meeting at one of the shelters as the buses continue to come in. I want you to know that Hanover Park is spoke of often and really well. When I work with other mayors and commissioners and representatives where one of the shelters is located, and so it makes me very proud to be from Hanover Park. The CIDC committee, we're looking at having, we had a meeting, finally. We're looking at having the proclamations that deal with cultural months, to have those being presented at the CIDC meetings themselves, so that we're not taking up time here at the dais, because we do have lengthy meetings and we want to be respectful, but at the same time, then we can have some sort of presentation to specific VIPs, et cetera, and maybe some learning activities. We're looking at events, and they've requested for monthly updates on our CIDC ordinance and what work is being done on that. I've been working with the mayor on that, and I've talked to some of our board members. I'll continue to knock on your doors or ring your phones to get your input on this as well, as I do believe it's something that we should move forward with. The Historic Committee is continuing to meet. This group is amazing. They had a trip to the Executive House. It was very cold, but it happened to be the same day as the Economic Development Committee had their business after hours. So thank you for sharing your foods, Ed, with your committee, with my committee. I appreciate that. So we looked at the historical home, and it's a beautiful place, and the history of it is beautiful. And so we want to do everything possible and answer the question, how can we save this home so it doesn't go the way of other historical buildings in the area? And so there was even talk of passing a preservation ordinance as well, and so that's something that we can look at if needed. But the Historical Committee is very much vested, and they represent many others. So there's just a handful of us that come, but behind it there's quite a few. The tribes that really want this to be protected. And then for those of you that are interested in helping our asylum seekers and Ukrainian families that are coming through, we are collecting items. All items, however, due to obvious reasons, have to be new. Feel free to contact me and we'll set up a pickup date or something like that. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Lisa, appreciate it. I know you're working double hours out there, and just appreciate that. I think your organization has become a model for others to follow. Trustee Porter?
I just want to report, I was at the virtual meeting of the Northwest Mayor Municipal Legislative Committee, and a couple of things came up that they're going to be pushing during the upcoming session. The LGDF, of course, is an ongoing concern, and they're continuing to advocate for a restoration of the fund. I think it was proven, or it was mentioned, that the reduction in the LGDF over the last 11 years has affected our local communities by the tune of $8.2 billion over the 11-year time frame, and that's quite a bit of money. What they're looking to do is to use Darien, who put together a blueprint of the negative impacts of the reduction of the LGDF, and so Darien and the DuPage Mayor and Managers Conference has put together a proposal highlighting the impact of the reduction in the LGDF. Northwest Mayor Municipal Conference is looking at adapting that, making some slight amendments, but also using that to present to our legislators to show them the negative impacts, the pending projects that have been affected because of the reduction in the LGDF, and to look at receipts that have been proposed versus the actual receipt. There have been suggestions from some of the state legislators that communities have been made whole because they're receiving receipts from video gaming and cannabis use tax. And that assertion is being debated and has been widely discussed as it's not being totally accurate, because those receipts from video gaming and cannabis were never meant to make us whole from the loss of LGDF revenue. They were supposed to be in addition to that. So we still have that hole in our budget based on the reduction of the LGDF. So they're working on that. A lot of discussion on the Safety Act, the trailer bill. There's, I think we're up to trailer bill number 3 that's been put forth, and there are a lot of concerns. But you know, when you look at the Safety Act and what it's trying to do, it has really good intentions, and it is looking to right some of the injustices in the justice system. So they're putting forward, they've taken some positions where they're looking at review of some of the provisions within the Safety Act. But that's going to be an ongoing discussion, and probably won't come up for any serious discussions or votes until the spring session, because no one will probably take that on during this time. And again, there's been ongoing discussion about the pension amortization, trying to get that moved from 2040 to 2050, which would give the villages and municipalities a little bit of breathing room before they have to put those dollars in place. So it was a very productive meeting with the legislative committee, and we got quite a bit done on doing that. And finally, I just want to say my daughter completed the marathon. She ran it in a little bit over 6 hours, but she did complete it, and it was an event. And I think I was as exhausted as she was when it was over, because we were running around trying to catch her at different points along the race course, and that proved to be quite challenging. So,
She
but
qualified for Boston?
Hmm?
She qualified for Boston?
I don't know, but
I think you got to be closer to 4 hours.
She said that this is a bucket list item for her. Not, you know, people told her, "Are you addicted now? You want to run another marathon?" And she said it's really too soon, but she thinks it's a bucket list item, not something that she's going to be doing again anytime soon. But thank you all for your support and for your encouragement. We really do appreciate it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Kemper?
So real quick, November 11th is Veterans Day. We will have the Veterans Day presentation here in this room at 7 p.m. on Friday the 11th. Let's see what else we have. Still a little bit of...
We have a keynote speaker.
I wasn't there for the meeting, so I don't know who the keynote speaker is.
Okay, we have a keynote speaker from the Public Works Department in the STP plant, your supervisor out there.
Yes, sir. Chris Rabone was in the United States Army, and he'll be speaking at the event.
We had a nice conversation. He's going to do an excellent job. I'm really pleased to hear that. So go ahead.
Okay, and then this weekend is Diwali, Festival of Lights, and I'll let Trustee Singh talk about that when it comes to history.
Festival of Lights. What's Festival of Lights?
You'll hear about it in a minute.
The 24th.
In a minute.
Huh? Oh, okay. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Bengoli.
Thank you. I want to thank John and the rest of our environmental committee for completing yet another river sweep recently. I was unable to attend, but I'm always thankful for the efforts of our environmental committee for continuing to keep our rivers clean, so thank you. Just wanted to flag that the Biden administration I believe less than a week ago, launched their student loan forgiveness application. It's now live. And again, this is up to $20,000 in forgiveness if they are federal loans. It's a very quick application. It takes only a few minutes, and did just want to flag that for any of our residents that may have student loan debt. Also wanted to remind our residents that we have an election coming up, and I would encourage our residents to exercise their right to vote. But just an important reminder that boundaries have changed in Illinois. As a reminder, after the 2020 census, the state of Illinois lost a congressional district, and after every census, boundaries change. And so, you know, people, those that have maybe been your state rep or state senator for a number of years, they may no longer be your representatives. So make sure, whether you live in Cook or DuPage County, make sure to check with those respected election divisions to, you know, just essentially verify your ballot. And then last but not least, it recently came to my attention that in my opinion, we as a board have some unfinished business in regards to certain ordinances that have been discussed during workshops, discussed during village board meetings, but have not actually come up for a vote. And so I am specifically referring to the gun ordinance that we talked about and the DEI ordinance that was discussed earlier this year. So it's two ordinances that we've discussed at length, and regardless of the vote outcome, I do believe that it is unfinished business. And so I am requesting, and I don't know if this is said to the board or if our attorney can assist me in the right process, but I am requesting that those ordinances come before the board in a vote, but only after any sort of necessary changes are made to address, you know, any of the concerns that have been discussed during previous meetings. I do just also want to note that when thinking about the DEI ordinance, I do know that a resolution was brought forth during one of our workshops. I believe that that resolution is insufficient, and it does not accurately address the needs of our residents, and therefore I am advocating for a vote on an ordinance versus a resolution. So I am going to ask our attorney what is the proper way to move forward with this.
If you have a specific motion you want to put forward with respect to that, it would be appropriate for you to offer that.
So,
otherwise, I'm not familiar with your agenda-setting procedure, but...
So it's a motion and then a second, or?
But there's nothing on
It
the
would be
agenda.
motion second and a consensus of the board.
Okay, so then I would motion that these two previously discussed ordinances be
Let's
brought.
take one at a time.
Okay. So I motion that the ordinance regarding the ban on the sales of assault weapons be brought before the village board for a vote, excuse me, bearing that the appropriate changes have been made to said ordinance.
I don't hear a second for that.
Second.
You have a second? Discussion?
I have a question.
Who has a question?
Juliana.
Juliana?
I don't have that ordinance, so unless, I mean, or that language, I think that's, I don't know what that, motion would be, so I don't have a document to bring forward.
A concern would be is that an ordinance that, as I understand the motion, it's refers to appropriate changes, and if there is no ordinance extant, I'm not sure that you could really consider the motion in that form.
We have an ordinance, it's been sent out to the board. I can send it to you, Juliana, if that's what you're
That's not
requesting.
what I guess, go ahead with, if you could just be clear as to what you're looking for. Because if it's what was, the board has had before them,
So you said request appropriate changes. We don't know what the
Right, right. So with both of these ordinances, right, I believe everyone here had either thoughts or concerns or suggestions as to the ordinance itself. And so before we vote on something, I just want to make sure that those concerns have been addressed and that we are voting on the most accurate and up-to-date ordinance that there is.
You're asking me to move on something I don't have before me.
Yeah, we don't have to draft it.
So what exactly, what motion do I need to make? So that is appropriate.
You can't, yeah, you can't vote on something you don't know.
I just don't know how to do it. 'Cause they-
Okay. So then
Withdraw.
so I withdraw my previous motion.
I withdraw my second.
You had a DEI initiative?
Hold on a second. We're not on that one yet.
Oh.
Go ahead, trustee Baker.
Okay, so I motion that we review, what is it? The proposed ordinance.
To finalize any changes so we can present it to the final board.
Thank you. Sorry, did you hear that? I should, okay, did you hear it? So I propose that we revisit the proposed ordinance and make any final changes so that it can be brought before the board for a vote.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? Call the roll.
Give me 1 second,
Christie?
sorry. Give me 1 second. Trustee Husani?
No.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Honestly, I don't know. That ordinance, it wasn't to my liking. So, I don't.
We're trying to revisit it.
Yes, sir. Are you changing it?
I'd like to table it until,
Abstain.
Well, that's not the
That would be
Yeah.
another,
Harvey?
there'd be another motion.
I said no to it, the reasoning, if I could, is, we had a discussion on it. I don't think we got to any good decision that will make an impact on, our community. We have discussed in depth. I think it's just bringing back that conversation. It's just a distraction more than anything else without making a impact that we are looking for. And if there is such thing, I would love to look at, but what we have already looked at and had made adjustments, I don't want to look at it again. That's why I said no.
So, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Husani is a no. Trustee Gutierrez?
No.
Trustee Porter?
Yes.
Trustee Kemper?
No.
Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
Trustee Prigi?
Can we be
this wasn't on the agenda. Can we even be voting on it?
You're
Well, we-
not taking final
It's
action.
it's a motion so that
It's a motion.
we
We
can
can-
vote
The
on,
motion to bring it back at some
to,
other
to
time?
ultimately vote on it and move
Oh,
on.
yeah. I still think we need to work on it, so no.
No.
So 2 yeses and 4 noes.
Okay.
I want to clarify something. This was about bringing it back to work on it?
To bringing it back
To
to
vote on it.
review it, finalize, and make changes on it, and then bring it to the board for a
Either
vote.
say yes or say no, but have to bring it back and vote on
We
it.
have a 4-2 vote not to bring it back. The DEI issue?
No. The gun.
No,
No.
we're
Yeah,
done with that.
Motion's
Okay.
You have
We
the,
haven't made a new motion yet, 1 second.
you had an issue on the DEI.
Yes, but before we move on there, so does this vote mean that the board is essentially leaving unfinished business on the table? We have an ordinance.
No, we just finished it.
They just finished.
It's not really unfinished business unless it's been formally placed before the board.
Okay, understood. Okay, the next motion that I would like to make is the, so then I would like to make a motion that the DEI ordinance is brought before the board as it stands to be voted on.
Is there such an,
Was it an ordinance?
is there such?
It was an ordinance.
It was an ordinance.
It was an
resolution.
ordinance.
I second
I
that.
mean, there's a draft, actual draft.
Yeah.
Can I request clarification? You're saying you want to bring back the original ordinance that was written a few years ago?
For the what?
No, we had a workshop on it a couple months ago on this
So
ordinance.
that wasn't an ordinance that they presented. I believe that staff looked at, looking at a resolution. Is that?
But did we have a second?
We did,
Huh?
yes, he already
Yes, we have a
seconded.
second.
Okay, discussion, you're in.
Okay, so your motion was to bring back the DEI original ordinance. That one?
Except wasn't it a resolution?
So a couple of months ago, we had a workshop in which
Right.
we discussed the welcoming ordinance that the CIDC committee put together.
Mhm.
It was at that time that a resolution was brought forth, and in my opinion, the resolution is insufficient.
So you want to bring it back
However-
to work on it?
However, I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's certain ordinances that we've had a plethora of discussion on, and we've taken no vote as a board.
Agreed.
And I don't know if that is intentional. I don't know if it's just because we've been quite busy, but
Right.
ultimately, right, these are issues that impact our community as a whole, and our community should know where we stand on these issues. So it's almost like we have ordinances like flapping in the wind.
So
right
that part I understand, but do you want to bring it back to get a vote on it, or to discuss and make changes, or?
To bring it back before us, is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah, if I can kind of chip in here. We had a room full of people on both of these issues, on the gun issue and on the DEI issue. There were a room full of people, residents, community residents that came and voiced their opinions. I think regardless of how the vote goes, we owe it to our residents and our community to have a vote on these two important issues. To not have a vote on them as a board, I think is abdicating our responsibility from what we should do. So that's why I second the motion to bring that resolution, the final version of the ordinance, to bring that final version of the ordinance before the board to have a vote. And the way boards work is if you vote it up or you vote it down, but you vote. You can't avoid the vote. We have to have a vote.
So that part I understand, and so that's why during my, my report, I said that I wanted to look at that ordinance, I want to bring it back. What I was indicating is I want to bring it back to clean that up, put teeth in it, so there is accountability with it, et cetera. But as it stands right now, I don't like that one either.
Right, so then let's talk about it.
So we can
Like,
make,
I don't
so that's what I want to know, when we bring it back up, that's where I'm confused. When we bring it back up, is it to vote on it or to discuss and make changes on it? That's where I'm confused.
I think it needs discussion, or we brought back to discussion, because we,
That's fine, I mean, we can continue discussion, I'm okay with that, but regardless,
Well,
you
it
know,
needs
just
to be
wanna
brought up,
echo
yeah.
Trustee Porter, let's just vote on it, you know? Let's have a vote on two things that we have spent an ample amount of time
So,
discussing.
so right now, we're voting on just bringing it back up. I want to fix it. I want to fix this ordinance. Is that it? That's what we're asking?
Yes,
Okay,
then
yes.
let me amend my,
Okay.
so, do I withdraw it?
You can amend it.
So I would like to amend my previous motion. So I'd like, so I motion that, as a board, we revisit the DEI. We, again, review and, I'm sorry, revisit the DEI ordinance, make the necessary changes, and then bring it up for a vote.
I second.
I think we need to, what did we have on that ordinance?
We had the original, we had some changes that were made, and then we had a resolution that was presented,
Okay,
Not an ordinance.
not an ordinance.
we will bring back a resolution that addresses the DEI that came from the CIDC committee.
That's not the motion that was
I-
made.
No,
that
it's
is-
for an
that is
ordinance.
not
I'm asking
tonight.
for clarity here, this is
You
discussion.
can't bring back an ordinance that doesn't exist.
The ordinance does exist.
Okay, I understood that what was presented was a resolution. And as I understood, the comment was that you felt that an ordinance would be more appropriate than a resolution.
That is correct.
But you can't bring an ordinance back because it's never been created in the first place. You could bring back a resolution, if you previously discussed it, you could bring it back for discussion.
There is an ordinance.
So
There is
the
an ordinance
board
that
has
was
had
created.
several different versions of ordinances and resolutions in a workshop setting. There has not been anything on the board agenda for consideration. So I think the question is what is it, what's the document that's going to be brought back to,
Right.
not back, but brought to a board for a vote, has
That's
to
right,
be
it
flushed
wasn't,
out.
it wasn't workshop. That wasn't workshops.
So then I amend my motion to add the word proposed ordinance.
Proposed DEI.
It's a, we'll bring back a resolution,
And-
we could always create whatever else you want.
Once you bring it back, you can
So,
amend it and call it.
again,
Proposed DEI.
again, Mayor, I'm not referring to the resolution, I'm referring to the proposed ordinance. In my opinion, the resolution is insufficient and it does not address the needs of our residents. So I am referring to the proposed ordinance. So that's why I amended my motion to say proposed.
If I can simplify, we want to look at that resolution that was brought before us at the workshop. We want to look at the ordinance that the CIDC committee came up with. And we need to somehow come up with something that shows that we are America's global village in an ordinance that is fair, equitable, and that has teeth, as I always say. In my conversations with several people, we have a lot of that already in place. We just need to get it organized, so.
Yes, but I just want to be
Yeah.
very clear about what my motion was and what it was not. So, yes.
So since we're in discussion, I'm an advocate for the DEI initiative, and I want the outcome to be, I mean, we've been chosen to be a prototype initiative in an exceptional way, sponsored by, I forget who even sponsored that whole initiative, but I think it's inappropriate right now to even bring that back, given the work that's going on and the work that we've done and the discussion that we've had, when it's all contributed to the fact that we were chosen to be a part of some training. So I think we're being a little in a hurry on this issue. I cannot support an ordinance. I am very supportive of a resolution of what this board would like to direct. And so, knowing all that, you know, I'm asking for patience on, you know, I mean, we've got a team working on this. I think we've got some opportunities to be more inclusive in how we approach that and bring it together. So that's, you know, that's kind of where I'm at.
So then why don't we have the discussion, let the board decide whether we want to proceed with a resolution or with an ordinance, then have that discussion, and then once we decide what vehicle we want to use to move forward, let's perfect that vehicle, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution, and then vote on it. Because obviously there are some new facts and some new realities based on our participation in the DEI conversations and the training that's going on that Trustee Gutierrez and Deputy Manager Webb are participating in, that can bring some light and some new value and information to it. So let's go ahead and move forward and have it. I'm just opposed to letting the thing just hang out there. And I think our residents deserve us to do something.
I don't disagree with that.
Should
That
we
sounds
have
like a
another
workshop, so we can make
workshop
sense of it.
To clean
So-
it up and decide which one we want to do, and then put it on the agenda for a vote.
Yeah, let's,
So the training goes, just because you mentioned, the training is not completed until the end of January 2023.
So
Just
we-
for that.
we can, after they're completed with their training, then maybe we could put a workshop in place, let's say in February, March.
and let them bring the information that they've gleaned from the training to present to us that can inform us to, you know, how we should write whatever document we decide we're going to move forward with. I agree to that, but at least we now have a timetable for how we're going to deal with this and get this done.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Let's put a date certain on it.
Okay.
Okay, and
think
let's
they need to
let's
understand what
make
Laura
that
is doing.
decision in a workshop. That
So
will,
I
then
think
the outcome of that workshop will come before the board.
I think we should all understand what LORE is doing and what role staff is, because I don't want there to be expectations that we're working on something that we're not. So if Dave, if you can talk through what you guys are doing, and then you can decide how you want that to fit into what.
Well, wait a minute. I think I heard we want them to complete their initiative, and then we'll have a workshop to discuss it, whether it's a resolution or it's
But I guess that's the part that is the disconnect. We can come back and say what we learned at LORE and how we're going to incorporate into the organization, but I don't think it has anything to do with an ordinance or a resolution.
I agree.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had sent out an email in response to Trustee Bancoli's that gave you just a sort of a snapshot of what the class is really all about. And when I say that, that's the best way that I can put what this training is. This is a training class, best way I can describe it to you is it's a college class that we are going to. It's academic first, probably practical application second. We are starting to get into practical now, which we're doing all of our practical work. I'm going to start organizing things here at the village in cycle 3 of the 6 cycles. The 6th cycle being the final, ending in January. This is not like they're going to say, these are the specific training classes you take to do this. This is taking your organization, applying a planning process to it, definitely looking at DEI topics that you are doing and taking those topics, policies, whatever you're looking at it, and being able to quote-unquote I can't say it easy.
Yeah.
Operationalize what you're doing here and doing it through the DEI lens. And a lot of the DEI lens is, you know, getting input from everyone, looking at all your different players, doing everything. So when you say we can bring all that back for that training, I'm just saying, I think the discussion on the board regarding this ordinance might not really, I don't want to say it's not applicable, but I think there's just differences of opinion on how you're doing that. And that's where this come from. We can tell you all that and what we're going to do. And that's why, as far as our project is concerned, they say start small. Take this small project, and what you'll see when Trustee Bancouli requested all of our projects, I requested that from the instructor, they're all going to be like compartmentalized projects of how you apply all these principles, take your process, look at them, and then solve that problem. You can then do that, once you've gotten good at it, you can do it through your whole organization and use those principles and cookie cutter it through your whole place and do it. Whether we bring in a consultant or not, the consultant can come in and say, hey, you know what? You got to take a look at this hiring process of yours. It's a problem. You can hire them to do it, or now we know what to do it, but we have an identified problem. We know how to solve the problem. So that's the training class kind of in a quick nutshell. It's a college course, and it's called Pilot because they are going to make it a class. They're developing a class. So after we're done, there'll be a class that they'll offer to other municipalities, businesses, college students, and everything. That's why that's the pilot in the pilot.
So does that class at any point touch upon resolutions and ordinances in CIDC?
Not in specific. It would be like, it would be the process of developing how we're going to come to a consensus, or what's the best thing for our municipality, using a DEI lens, to do that. It is not, should we have, you know, this in the policy, this in the policy. That's what you're going to decide in your process.
Right.
And when I asked the question, do other communities have this ordinance or resolution, I think there were only two in your group that, Oak Park and.
Oak Park's not in our group. Nobody's doing, that I'm aware of, I haven't seen the whole list, but just in talking with my classmates, nobody's doing a welcoming ordinance, you know, or a DEI ordinance or whatever the ordinance is. They're all doing interdepartmental things. Like Highland Park is doing a very similar one to us, trying to communicate better with their language speaking people. Some people are looking at just, hey, how do we improve our fire hiring? Because some communities are having problems recruiting minority and other genders and everything through the firefighting police. You know, so it's very segmented, siloed problems because they want us to start small because we're supposed to be learning how to do this properly. You can't just come back and say, oh, we're going to solve all of our problems throughout our whole village. These two, Barry and I, are going to come back and be experts at this. It's learning how to do it properly, you know, and that's what we're doing.
That makes sense, and thank you for that explanation. I would also just like to add, I think that what Barry and Dave are doing is very much a benefit to DEI in this village as a whole, but I don't think that our vote should be dependent on their work. I think that, well, I don't think I know that this work on this ordinance occurred before they started this process. And, you know, I just want to quickly respond to the mayor. You know, you said that we should wait and we shouldn't rush things, but this is an issue that was brought to the village board in 2017. That's been years, right? That this issue was initially brought to the board. And so I don't think that we're rushing. We've had discussion upon discussion upon discussion on this. Let's just vote on it. Whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, let's just vote on it and move on.
Well, I don't think that's good governance. I think, as I stated, we let the work complete. We have a workshop to decide what it all looks like. We make that decision, and then we have a date certain board meeting that we address it. To me, that's a logical approach. Just to drop the hammer and say we're voting yes or no, I think that's premature. And I went to the committee in 2017 to present them the essence of a welcoming committee. I initiated that. And it went all over the map. So, I think, I don't even know what the motion is. But if you want a motion, I would just state.
No,
I just state-
I would like to respond to that because I believe in good governance. I very much believe in good governance, which is why I have asked for workshops, continued discussion, community input. So for you to say that voting on an ordinance in which we discussed months ago and finally coming to an end to something that we discussed months ago is not good governance, truly is an insult. And
Well, I'm
so
sorry you take
I
it that
believe
way,
that
but
I'm
that's-
not finished speaking. I believe that this ordinance is of the utmost importance. When you look at our communities that are changing, we have busloads of migrants coming into the Chicagoland area. We have Ukrainian immigrants. We have the Afghan refugees. Our community is changing, whether we want to talk about that or not. And so part of this ordinance is that it welcomes everyone that's coming into our community. So yes, it is of the utmost importance. And addressing issues as they come to our community is good governance.
We have a motion and a second.
To do what?
Right now we have a motion that the board revisit the proposed DEI ordinance and resolution as discussed at our workshop and make the necessary changes and bring it back to the board for a vote. That is currently what the motion and the second is. Can I take a vote?
Question, call
Yes.
the question. No, I'm calling the
Oh,
question.
okay.
I
Can
mean-
I-
Yeah, call the question. You said call the
I got
question.
one. Trustee Porter,
Yes.
Trustee Bancole,
Yes.
Trustee Husani,
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez.
Yes.
Trustee Kemper,
Yes.
Trustee Prigi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And I'll call in on that and say yes.
Sir?
Okay. Don't be insulted, please. All right. Trustee Priggy.
No report.
Trustee Husseini.
All right. On September 29th, Park District held a Garba event that continues usually for like 10 nights, but we have actually done it for 6 nights at Park District. It's a very, very colorful event with costumes that male and female both wear in specific costumes and dance throughout night. And that's a very beautiful festival that happens every year, and it's more religious than cultural, but it's been celebrated by many other religions as well. So it was very nice to see. It was more than 800 people at that Park District, and people were waiting in lines outside because capacity was at that small peak and you cannot enter, and they were waiting, and I don't know how long they have waited to get in. It's nice to see that, how many people have poured into Hanover Park, and there's a reason to get into. So I'm really excited and energized by what the Interfaith Board has been doing in conjunction with the Park District and Hanover Park Foundation, kind of creating a momentum and bringing all the cultures and religions together and celebrating. Raja Krishnamurthy, Congressman, was there as elected official addressing the crowd as well. There were many other elected officials came as well. It was a very, very nice event that held at Hanover Park. So hopefully many more to come. Last week, Development Commission held a public hearing for the townhomes on Stearns and Redford. So public hearing, We had a lot of residents joined and echoed their voice. That is not a good development for the community. That's how it's been taken by the board committee as well, and had a good discussion, good debate. There was no initial solution to what the problems that were being brought by the residents. They wanted to a broader street as well. It's a narrow street there at this time, and getting in and out is issue as it is. To have this 47 units added to that small street that we have. So it will come to board first week of November for vote. So it's something to, I'm sure we will have a company of residents who are not in favor of this, but something to look out for.
Look out, here it comes.
And study and maybe visit that street and see, I think to prepare ourselves instead of get blindsided and have so many people in the audience, and we're, looking at the hearing, I'm expecting that's how it's going to be. Economic development also discussed about voting online, that we have a forum open for favorite business in Hanover Park. It's posted on Facebook, and that link will take you to the village website, and you can nominate a business that you think is doing good in the community. Cook County have a $10,000 grant for small businesses, and Economic Development has taken that initiative with conjunction with Northwestern Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and educating small businesses how to apply for this grant. This morning, Mayor, me, and Shubra, we went to ICSC, which stands for Innovating Commerce Serving Communities. And that event was basically, this is my first time going there, so very interesting, and how I took it, it was basically a high-level realtors and brokers who work with national chains of retail stores come at a one platform, and all the villages participate, municipalities participate to attract these businesses in their communities. So it was really, really good event. It was fast networking in the morning at 8 o'clock, retail runway, which was very, very informative, and a lot of retail who are the brokers or realtors addressing who they represent and what their client is interested in. According to that, municipals were approaching them. So Mayor gave me a crash course there, right, sitting there at the event, and thank you, Mayor, for all the guidance and kind of what to look out for and who to approach and buy. And all that. That's more important, and that's how we're growing, and that's how we're bringing the businesses to Hanover Park. It takes a lot behind the scenes as to what elected officials do, and the staff does, and Shubra, and the whole team, and Juliana, everybody, to attract businesses to Hanover Park. It takes a lot on the back end that we don't talk about it much. And this was something, a first impact that I got 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock with the mayor for developments that's happening. When we have a land available, and who do we want? And who is interested out there? So we kind of talk to brokers who are out there who know that their clients are interested in investing. So that's a really good program. I think it was really productive. We exchanged a lot of business cards, met a lot of people who are decision makers. Very interesting, and looking forward for what to come out of this. And actually, we come out with a book of contacts as well that we can call and kind of follow up people who were not able to meet. So I was kind of wearing that banker hat and having that networking, that the bankers do. That's how it is. And it was very pleasant to see that, and it's just something that I think Hanover Park is going to benefit. So that's it for my report.
And thank you for coming with. I think it's important that the liaison to that committee be a part of that. So, thank you very
Thank
much. With that, no executive session is scheduled. I want to thank Ken for filling in for Bernie tonight. And motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Husani?
Yes.
Trustee Gutierrez?
Yes.
Trustee Porter?
Yes.
Trustee Kemper?
Yes.
Trustee Bancole?
Yes.
And Trustee Prigi.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:33.
Juliana? Can I talk to you?
Can you talk to me?
I appreciate the compliment.
I mean,